Hey guys, tonight we are revealing the light hidden in stone. A mason works with tons of granite, but a lapidary works with grains of diamond. We are joining the medieval gem cutter. We are going to use the hardest substance on earth to grind facets that trap light and create fire. This is a story about patience, geometry, and ultimate value. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Now, hear the scratch of the wheel, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The workshop is small, not cramped, but intimate. The kind of space where every tool has its place, and every place has meaning earned through decades of use. Morning light streams through the window, angled just so, falling across the workbench in a shaft of gold. This is not accident. The window was positioned with the precision of a sundial maker, oriented to catch the sun at its clearest, when shadows are sharpest and colors truest. Outside, the streets of Bruges are beginning their daily symphony of commerce and movement. But here, behind these thick stone walls, the world narrows to a point no larger than a grain of wheat. The workbench itself is worn smooth, its surface dark with oil and use. Generations of hands have rested here, steadied themselves here, performed miracles of patience here. The wood remembers. You can see it in the subtle depressions, the polished valleys where forearms have braced, where palms have pressed during moments of ultimate concentration. To the untrained eye, the bench appears cluttered. Small wooden boxes, ceramic cups, metal instruments whose purposes are not immediately clear. Leather pouches tied with cord, a magnifying lens mounted on an articulated arm, but there is order here, perfect order. Each item positioned within easy reach, arranged according to a logic refined over lifetimes of work. The air has a particular quality. It smells of olive oil, yes, but there is something else beneath it. A faint metallic scent, almost like the air before a storm. And dust. Not the dust of ordinary life, of swept floors and forgotten corners, but something finer. Diamond dust. So fine it is nearly invisible, suspended in the air like motes in the light shaft, slowly settling on every surface with the patience of snow. This dust is precious. Each particle is collected, swept carefully into containers, reused. Nothing is wasted in this trade. A year's worth of diamond dust, properly collected, might be sold for enough to feed a family for a month. The lapidary sits at his bench. His name is not important to our story, though it was important to him, to his family, to the guild that trained him through 7 years of apprenticeship. What matters is his hands. They are neither young nor old, but somewhere in that middle distance where skill has fully matured without yet beginning to tremble. His fingers are marked with tiny scars, pale lines where the diamond has bitten him over the years. These are badges of learning, each one a lesson in pressure, in angle, in the treacherous moment when concentration slips. Before him, resting on a square of dark velvet, lies a stone. At first glance, it is profoundly disappointing. It looks nothing like the brilliant gems that will eventually adorn the fingers of bishops and the crowns of queens. It resembles a piece of quartz, perhaps, or clouded glass. Roughly octahedral in shape, as diamonds often are when they emerge from the earth, it has the dull gray-white appearance of rendered fat or old soap. The surface is covered in a natural skin, a crust of mineral residue that formed over millions of years in the unimaginable heat and pressure deep within the earth. To hold this stone, to turn it in your fingers, would be to hold profound potential unrealized. It weighs perhaps 4 carats, not enormous, but significant, worth a small fortune in its current state, worth a king's ransom if the work ahead goes well, worth nothing at all if it goes poorly. The lapidary does not immediately touch the stone. This is part of the ritual, part of the discipline. He sits, he breathes. He lets his eyes adjust to the quality of the light, lets his mind settle into that particular state of focused calm that the work requires. Outside, a cart passes, its wheels loud on the cobblestones. A vendor calls out, advertising fish. The sounds reach him, but do not penetrate. They wash over the surface of his concentration like waves over a stone. When his breathing has slowed, When his heartbeat is steady and calm, he reaches out and lifts the diamond. It is surprisingly warm in his fingers, having absorbed heat from the light, from the velvet beneath it. He turns it slowly, watching how the cloudy surface catches and scatters the light. Even in this rough state, there are hints of what lies within. Occasional flashes, momentary sparks where the internal structure of the crystal allows light to pass and refract. These flashes are promises. They are possibilities. They are also warnings. The first task, the foundational task upon which everything else depends, is to understand the stone's inner structure. Diamonds, for all their hardness, for all their reputation as eternal and indestructible, have a grain. Like wood, like fabric, like the very stone of the earth itself, diamonds have directions of weakness, planes along which they will split cleanly, and directions where they are strongest. To work against the grain is to court disaster. To work with it is to partner with the stone's own nature. Finding the grain requires patience and a particular quality of attention. The lapidary holds the stone close to his eye, rotating it slowly in the shaft of sunlight. He is looking for what the old masters called the grain line, though it is less a visible line than a subtle regularity in how light moves through the imperfect crystal. He squints, adjusting the angle. There, a faint plane of weakness, visible as a barely perceptible shadow deep within the stone, running at an angle through the crystal's heart. But one observation is not enough, never enough. He sets the stone down and reaches for a small brass cup filled with oil. With the tip of a wooden stick, he places a single drop of oil on the diamond's surface. The oil changes everything, eliminates the scattering effect of the rough surface, allows light to penetrate more deeply. He lifts the stone again, holds it to the light. The internal structure becomes slightly clearer. Yes, there is definitely a grain plane there, running roughly parallel to one of the octahedral faces. This is good. This is workable. He makes a small mark on a piece of parchment, a sketch of the stone's shape with a line indicating the grain. Then he wipes the oil away with a scrap of linen and examines the stone from a different angle. The grain must be confirmed from multiple perspectives. A mistake here, a misread line, would be catastrophic. He has heard the stories, as has every lapidary. Master craftsmen who spent weeks on a stone only to have it shatter at the final moment because they misunderstood its grain. Fortunes lost in a heartbeat, reputations destroyed. Some say old Master Dietrich went mad after shattering the Duke's stone, a diamond the size of a walnut. He died a pauper, they say, unable to ever hold a diamond again without his hands shaking. The lapidary breathes. He sets these thoughts aside. Fear has no place at this bench. Only attention, only presence. He examines the stone again, and again, each time from a different angle with different light. Sometimes with oil, sometimes without. He consults the natural faces of the octahedron, understanding that the crystal grew along certain axes, that its internal structure reflects the geometry of its formation. An octahedron has 4 triangular faces meeting at each vertex. The grain planes typically run parallel to these faces, specifically along what crystallographers will one day call the cleavage planes. But this knowledge is not written in books, not in this century. It lives in the hands and eyes of masters, passed down through demonstration and correction, through success and catastrophic failure. Hours pass. The light shifts. What began as morning sun has moved toward noon, grown whiter, more intense. The lapidary adjusts the position of his bench, rotating it slightly to keep the optimal light on his work. He has not stopped examining the stone except to make occasional notes, to sketch from memory the internal features he has observed. On the parchment before him, a diagram is emerging. The octahedral outline of the rough stone, marked with lines indicating grain, with notes about inclusions he has spotted, tiny crystals of foreign material trapped during the diamond's formation. These inclusions must be mapped. They can weaken the stone, create unexpected fracture points, or if positioned correctly, can be removed during the cutting process. He sets the stone down again and reaches for a different tool. It looks like a needle mounted in a wooden handle, but the needle's point is diamond. Not gem quality, but an industrial fragment, valuable only for its hardness. He dips the diamond point in oil and then, with extraordinary care, draws it across the rough diamond surface. The point skitters slightly, catches, then begins to scratch. He is testing hardness, testing direction. A diamond scratched parallel to its grain will mark slightly easier than one scratched against the grain. The difference is subtle, barely perceptible, but to trained hands, it is readable. He makes another scratch, perpendicular to the first. Yes, there. That direction is slightly harder, the needle point resisting fractionally more. This confirms his observation of the grain. He makes a note. The diagram grows more detailed. This process of examination and notation might seem excessive, even obsessive, but it is necessary. A lapidary works perhaps 3 or 4 significant stones in a year. Each one represents months of income. Each one carries the weight of expectation from the merchant who purchased the rough, from the nobleman who commissioned the cut, from the goldsmith who waits to set it, from the queen who will eventually wear it. And beyond all these human concerns, there is the stone itself. It waited millions of years in darkness to be brought to light. It deserves his full attention. By the time the light begins to shift toward afternoon, the lapidary has made his decision. He knows where the grain lies. He knows how the stone will split. But this knowledge is only the beginning. Now comes the question of how to split it, where to make the division. The rough stone could be cut in several ways. One approach would produce a larger finished gem, but with a poorer shape. Another would sacrifice size for better proportions. The merchant who sold him this stone has certain expectations, of course. Bigger stones command better prices, but a poorly proportioned diamond, even a large one, will never achieve the fire and brilliance of a well-cut, smaller stone. And reputation matters more than a single sale. A lapidary known for producing brilliant stones will always find work. One known for size over quality will eventually be forgotten. He decides. The stone will be cleaved to remove a portion that contains a significant inclusion, a dark spot that would mar the finished gem. This will reduce the final size by perhaps half a carat, but the resulting stone will be cleaner, more brilliant. It is the right choice. The only choice, really, if the work is to be done properly. Now the real work begins. The cleaving. This is the moment that defines the lapidary's art, the instant where years of training and natural aptitude converge into a single action. Done correctly, a tap with a small hammer will split the diamond cleanly along its grain, separating it as neatly as you might split a piece of kindling. Done incorrectly, that same tap will send fractures racing through the crystal in every direction, reducing a king's ransom to worthless powder. The lapidary stands and stretches. His back is stiff from hours of bending over the workbench. He walks to the window and looks out at the street below. The afternoon is well advanced. Merchants are beginning to close their stalls. A group of children plays near the canal, their laughter drifting up through the cool air. He watches them for a moment, letting his eyes rest on something distant, relieving the strain of close work. Then he returns to the bench. The tools for cleaving are simple, deceptively simple. A small hammer, its head no larger than a thimble, its handle worn smooth by use. A sharp blade, thin as a leaf made of hardened iron. A wooden block with a groove cut into it, padded with leather to hold the diamond steady. And a stick of beeswax, nothing more. In other workshops, in other trades, complexity might be valued. Banks of specialized tools, elaborate mechanisms, impressive displays of technological sophistication. But here, in this quiet room, simplicity reigns. The tools are simple because they must not interfere with the lapidary's connection to the stone. Everything must be felt through the hands, understood through touch and sound, and the subtle feedback of resistance and yield. He prepares the stone carefully. First, a thorough cleaning. Any oil or dust on the surface could cause the blade to slip. He wipes it with clean linen until the rough surface is completely dry. Then he examines it once more, confirming the grain line, the exact spot where the cleavage should begin. He makes a tiny mark with a piece of charcoal, a target no bigger than a pinhead. This is where the blade will rest. This is the point of no return. The wooden block goes on the bench, positioned in the light where he can see clearly. He takes the beeswax and warms it over a small candle flame until it becomes soft and pliable. Then, working quickly before the wax cools, he presses the diamond into position in the groove, settling it firmly so that the marked cleavage point faces upward, perfectly accessible. The wax hardens around the stone, holding it immobile. He tests it with his finger, pressing gently. It does not move. Good. Now the blade. He selects one from a set of three, each one slightly different in thickness and shape. For this stone, this grain, he chooses the middle blade, thin but not fragile. He inspects its edge in the light, confirming it is sharp and straight. A damaged edge could deflect at the critical moment, turning what should be a clean split into a catastrophic fracture. Satisfied, he sets the blade aside and wipes his palms on his apron. They are slightly damp with perspiration. This is natural, expected. He has done this hundreds of times, but it never becomes routine. Each stone is unique. Each cleaving is a new test. He picks up the blade and positions it carefully on the marked point. The edge rests against the diamond, aligned precisely with the grain. His left hand holds the blade handle, keeping it steady. His right hand picks up the small hammer. The weight of it is familiar, comfortable. He has held this hammer so many times that it has become an extension of his hand, its balance and heft understood at a level deeper than conscious thought. He breathes, in, out, slowly. He lets his vision soften slightly, taking in the whole scene rather than focusing intensely on a single point. This is a trick the old masters taught him. Too much focus creates tension. Tension creates rigidity. Rigidity creates error. Better to be relaxed, alert but not tight, ready but not coiled. The hammer should fall almost by itself, guided by intention but not forced. The room is perfectly quiet. Outside sounds fade. The children's laughter is gone. The vendors' calls are silent. There is only this moment, this stone, this blade, this hammer. He can hear his own breathing, slow and steady. He can hear the faint creak of the building settling, wood adjusting to the cooling afternoon. And beneath it all, silence. Deep silence. The kind of silence that exists in caves, in tombs, in the hearts of mountains where diamonds are born. He lifts the hammer, not high, just a few inches. Height does not matter. This is not about force. It is about precision, about the transfer of energy at exactly the right angle, in exactly the right place. The hammer reaches the top of its arc and begins to fall. Time seems to slow. He can see the hammerhead descending, can track its path with absolute clarity. His hand guides but does not force. Gravity does the work. The hammer falls. Tinker. The sound is small, almost delicate. Metal on metal, blade on diamond, transmitted through the stone with a clarity that speaks of perfect contact. For a moment, nothing happens. The stone sits unchanged, the blade resting on its surface, the world holding its breath. And then, with no additional sound, with no drama or fanfare, a crack appears. It is impossibly thin, a line of darkness spreading across the diamond's surface like ice forming on a winter pond. The crack follows the grain plane exactly, precisely, as though drawn by an invisible hand. It travels through the stone in less than a heartbeat, racing from the point of contact to the far edge, and the diamond separates. Two pieces where there was one. A larger portion and a smaller chip, the piece containing the inclusion cleanly removed. The lapidary sets down the hammer. His hand is steady, but inside his heart is racing. This never gets old. This moment of successful cleaving, when theory becomes reality, when understanding and skill align to transform potential into actuality. He allows himself a small smile, then immediately focuses again. The cleaving is done, but the work is far from over. Now he must examine the cleaved surface, confirm that the split is clean, that no hidden fractures were created by the impact. He carefully removes the larger piece from the wax, warming it slightly with his breath to soften the adhesive. The diamond comes free cleanly. He holds it to the light, examining the cleaved face. It is smooth, almost glassy, reflecting light with a different quality than the rough natural surfaces. This is the first artificial face created on this stone, the first intervention of human geometry onto natural crystalline form. It is beautiful in its flatness, in the way light slides across it without scattering. He inspects it carefully, looking for any signs of trouble. Fractures would appear as white lines or cloudy areas spreading from the cleaved surface into the interior. He sees none. The split was perfect. The smaller piece, the chip containing the inclusion, he sets aside. It will be saved, perhaps used for industrial purposes, or crushed into powder for use in cutting and polishing other stones. Nothing is wasted. The larger piece he weighs in his hand, feeling its mass, its potential. It is roughly 3.5 carats now, perhaps slightly less. From this, he will fashion a finished gem of 2 to 2.5 carats, depending on how the cutting goes. The shape will be something between what will one day be called a table cut and a point cut, though these terms do not yet exist. He will create a flat top, a table, with angled sides leading down to a point or a smaller flat bottom. The exact proportions will be determined by the stone itself, by its shape and grain and internal characteristics. But before cutting can begin, before the grinding wheels and polishing compounds come into play, the stone must be mounted. It must be fixed to a handle, a dop stick, that will allow him to hold it securely while working. This mounting process, called dopping, is less dramatic than cleaving, but no less important. A poorly mounted stone can work loose during cutting, can be damaged or lost, can ruin hours of work in an instant. The dop stick lies on the bench, waiting. It is a simple thing, a length of hardwood about 6 inches long and half an inch thick, rounded at one end to fit comfortably in the palm. The other end has been shaped to a slight taper, creating a surface where the diamond will be attached. The wood is old, seasoned, dry. It will not warp or split. Previous stones have been mounted on this same stick, their work completed, their settings finished, their new owners long since departed. The stick remains, patient and ready. The mounting can be done with shellac or with lead solder, depending on the stone and the work ahead. Shellac is easier to remove but less secure. Lead solder provides a stronger bond, but requires more heat to release the stone when the work is complete. For this diamond, with its significant value and the precision grinding ahead, he chooses lead solder. The bond must be absolutely secure. He sets up a small brazier, no larger than a teacup, filled with charcoal. Using a flint and steel, he strikes sparks until the charcoal catches, then blows gently to encourage the flame. The charcoal glows red, radiating heat. He holds the dop stick near the coals, warming the wood slowly, evenly, ensuring no part of it chars or scorches. When the wood is warm to the touch, almost hot, he takes a small piece of lead solder and melts it onto the tapered end of the stick. The lead flows and spreads, creating a small pool of molten metal. Now comes the delicate part. He picks up the diamond with a pair of brass tweezers, holding it carefully by the edges. The cleaved face will become the top of the finished gem, so the bottom, the natural rough portion, will be embedded in the lead. He holds the stone just above the molten lead, positioning it carefully, ensuring the orientation is correct. The alignment must be perfect. If the stone is mounted even slightly crooked, every cut, every facet, will be off angle. The error will compound with each step. He breathes, steadies his hands, and then, with a smooth motion, he presses the diamond into the molten lead. The metal flows around the stone's lower portion, gripping it, holding it. He keeps the diamond perfectly vertical, perfectly aligned, while the lead cools and hardens. The heat from the molten metal travels up through the diamond, and for a moment the stone is warm in the tweezers. Then the lead solidifies, transitions from liquid to solid in seconds, and the diamond is held fast. He releases the tweezers and examines his work. The stone sits proudly at the end of the darp stick, mounted straight and true. He tests it gently, trying to wiggle it. There is no movement. The bond is solid. Satisfied, he sets the mounted stone aside to cool completely while he prepares the next phase of work. The brooding wheel waits. Brooding is the process of shaping the diamond, of transforming its rough, irregular octahedral form into something approaching a round outline. This is done not with blades or files or any of the tools that might work on softer materials. The only thing that can shape a diamond is another diamond. And so the process of brooding involves holding one diamond against another, while at least one of them is spinning, using the incomparable hardness of diamond to grind away diamond. The wheel itself is a simple wooden disc, perhaps 8 inches in diameter and an inch thick, mounted on an axle that allows it to spin freely. One diamond, a rough stone of lower quality not suitable for gemwork, is permanently fixed to the edge of this wheel using the same lead solder technique. The wheel is mounted on a frame that allows the lapidary to spin it by hand, using a cord wrapped around the axle in the manner of a bow drill. Pull the cord one direction, the wheel spins. Push it back, the wheel spins the other way. The motion becomes rhythmic, meditative, a back and forth that can be sustained for hours. But before the brooding can begin, there are preparations. The workspace must be perfectly clean. Any dust or debris on the wheel could cause irregular grinding, could create scratches or gouges in the diamond's surface. He wipes down the wheel carefully, then inspects the diamond mounted on its edge. Over time, this diamond also wears down, its shape becoming irregular from grinding against other stones. When it becomes too worn, it must be replaced. But for now, it is still serviceable, its grinding surface relatively flat and even. He positions the frame on the workbench where the light is good, and he can sit comfortably for extended work. The darp stick with the newly mounted diamond goes in his left hand, held firmly but not rigidly. His right hand will operate the bow that spins the wheel. He positions the diamond against the grinding stone on the wheel's edge, angling it to begin removing material from the rough areas, to begin coaxing the irregular shape toward roundness. He draws the bow. The wheel begins to turn, slowly at first, then faster as the motion smooths out. The two diamonds make contact. The sound is like nothing else in the world. A high, singing scratch, almost musical, the sound of the hardest substance on earth abrading itself. It is not loud, but it is penetrating, a sound that seems to bypass the ears and resonate directly in the bones. Some find it unpleasant, setting their teeth on edge. But to the lapidary, it is the sound of progress, of transformation, of light being slowly, painstakingly released from stone. The grinding is slow, incredibly slow. Even diamond against diamond removes material at a rate barely perceptible to the eye. He works for 5 minutes and pauses to examine the stone. A tiny amount of material has been removed, creating a slightly flatter area on one edge. This is correct. This is as expected. He returns to work. The motion becomes automatic. Pull, push, pull, push. The wheel spins back and forth, its rhythm steady. The diamond in his left hand he rotates slowly, constantly, ensuring that the grinding is even around the entire circumference of the stone. He must create a round outline, or as close to round as his iron hand can achieve. This roundness is foundational. When the facets are eventually cut, they must meet in straight lines, their edges crisp and geometrically precise. Any irregularity in the underlying shape will be magnified when the facets are added. Time passes differently in this work. Minutes feel like hours when you're watching closely, yet hours can pass in what seems like moments when you find the rhythm and settle into it. The light shifts as afternoon moves toward evening. The shaft of sunlight that illuminated the workbench has moved across the floor, climbed the far wall, and disappeared. The room grows dimmer. The lapidary lights a lamp, an oil lamp with a thick glass chimney that protects the flame from drafts. The lamplight is warmer than sunlight, more yellow, but it will suffice for the rough shaping work. He continues grinding. Pull, push, pull, push. The singing scratch of the wheel, the slow rotation of the stone in his hand. Every few minutes he stops, examines the progress, brushes away the accumulating diamond dust with a soft brush. The dust is collected on a piece of white paper beneath the wheel to be saved and reused. Even this finest powder has value, both monetary and practical. The stone gradually changes shape. The rough edges are being rounded away. The octahedral faces are disappearing, replaced by a circular profile that is starting to look like a gem in waiting. But the work is far from complete. The stone must be perfectly round, perfectly symmetrical. Any variation will show in the finished gem as misaligned facets, as areas where light escapes rather than being reflected back to the eye. Lapidary's hands are steady, but they are also beginning to tire. This is natural, expected. The work requires constant small adjustments, constant microcorrections, a level of fine motor control that is exhausting to maintain. He sets down the darp stick and the bow, flexes his fingers, rolls his shoulders. The lamp flickers slightly, its flame dancing in an errant draught. Outside, the sounds of the city have changed. Evening is settling in. Shops are closed. The workday is ending for most people. But here, in this small workshop, the day's true work continues. He picks up the darp stick again and examines the stone critically under the lamplight. The roundness is improving, but there is still work to do. One side is slightly flatter than the others, a remnant of the original octahedral shape that has not yet been fully ground away. He notes this, adjusts his approach, and returns to the wheel. Pull, push, pull, push. The rhythm resumes. The scratch of diamond on diamond fills the room, a sound ancient and timeless, the sound of human will imposing order on nature's chaos. The stone spins slowly in his hand, offering each part of its circumference to the grinding wheel in turn. Material is removed grain by grain, molecule by molecule, the hardest substance yielding only to itself. As the work continues, the lapidary's mind enters that state of calm focus that the best craftsmen know. It is not meditation exactly, though it shares some qualities. It is not simple concentration, though concentration is certainly present. It is something else, a merging of intention and action where thought and deed become almost indistinguishable. The body knows what to do, has learned through thousands of hours of practice, and the conscious mind simply guides gently, making small corrections, maintaining the vision of what the finished stone should become. The hours pass. The lamp oil burns lower in its reservoir. The diamond dust accumulates on the white paper, a small pile of precious powder. And slowly, gradually, with the patience that defines all worthy work, the diamond takes shape. The roundness is nearly complete. The stone has been transformed from its rough octahedral birth shape into something approaching a perfect circle when viewed from above. But approaching is not enough. It must be perfect, or as close to perfect as human hands can achieve. The lapidary continues, his movements now so automatic that they require almost no conscious thought. The wheel spins, the diamond rotates, and material disappears into dust. He stops again, examines the profile against the lamplight. Better, much better. The circle is clean now, symmetrical with no flat spots or irregular bulges. He turns the darp stick slowly, checking from every angle. Yes, this will do. The brooding is complete. The stone is ready for the next phase. He sets down the bow and the darp stick and stretches his back. The lamp has burned for hours now, its flame steady and bright in the darkened room. Outside, night has fully fallen. The city is quiet. Most people are in their homes, preparing for sleep or already sleeping. But the lapidary's work continues. This is often how it goes. The work takes as long as the work takes. There are no shortcuts, no ways to hurry the process without courting disaster. He stands and walks to the window, looking out at the darkened street below. A few windows show lamplight, warm yellow squares in the darkness. The moon is up, nearly full, painting the canal with silver. He watches for a moment, letting his eyes rest on the distance, then returns to his bench. The next tool waits. The scaife. This is the heart of the lapidary's workshop, the device that transforms shaped stone into brilliant gem. It is a wheel, like the brooding wheel, but different in almost every important way. Where the brooding wheel is wooden and small, turned by hand, the scaife is iron and large, driven by foot. It sits in its own frame on the floor beside the workbench, a horizontal disc of cast iron perhaps 14 inches across and 2 inches thick. The surface has been carefully ground flat and smooth, trued with such precision that a straight edge laid across it touches at every point. The wheel is mounted on a vertical axle that rises from beneath the floor, where it connects to a treadle mechanism. When the lapidary presses the treadle with his foot, the wheel below ground turns, and through a system of cords and pulleys, the scaife above ground spins. The mechanism allows for considerable speed. The scaife can spin fast enough that its surface becomes a blur, fast enough that the sound of its passage through air creates a rhythmic whir-whir-whir that fills the room. But before the scaife can be used, it must be charged. The smooth iron surface, for all its precision, cannot cut diamond. Nothing can cut diamond except diamond itself. And so the surface must be loaded with diamond dust, the same precious powder that has been accumulating throughout the brooding process, mixed with others from previous work, with dust bought from other lapidaries, with powder ground specifically for this purpose, from industrial-grade diamonds too flawed or poorly colored for gemwork. The lapidary opens a small wooden box and removes a leather pouch. Inside the pouch is diamond dust, graded by fineness. For the initial faceting work, he will use medium-grade dust. Later, for the final polishing, he will switch to the finest dust available, powder so fine it feels like silk between the fingers. He pours a small amount of the medium dust onto the scaife's surface, just a pinch, then adds several drops of olive oil from a ceramic jar. The oil and dust must be mixed, worked into a paste that will coat the iron surface evenly. Using a flat piece of hardwood, he spreads the mixture across the scaife, working it in circular motions, ensuring complete coverage. The oil helps the dust adhere to the iron and also provides lubrication during the cutting process. Too much oil and the dust will slide around uselessly. Too little and the friction will generate excessive heat, potentially damaging the diamond. The balance must be precise, learned through experience, adjusted by feel. When the scaife is charged and ready, he positions his stool beside it. The setup is ergonomic, refined over centuries of practice. The scaife sits at a height where he can comfortably press the darp stick against its surface while reaching the foot treadle. The lamp is repositioned to illuminate the work area. Everything must be arranged for hours of sustained work with minimal fatigue. He picks up the darp stick with the diamond mounted on its end. The stone catches the lamplight, throwing small flashes despite its still rough surface. Soon, very soon, those flashes will become true fire. He examines the stone once more, planning the work ahead. The first facet to be cut will be the table, the large flat face on top of the stone. This will be the window through which light enters the diamond, and it must be perfectly flat, perfectly smooth, oriented at precisely the right angle to the stone's overall geometry. The angle is everything. This is what separates true lapidary work from mere stone cutting. The angles at which facets are cut determine how light behaves inside the diamond, whether it is trapped and reflected or allowed to escape. The medieval lapidary does not have the mathematical precision that will come in later centuries, does not know the exact refractive index of diamond or the critical angle for total internal reflection. But he has something perhaps more valuable: generations of accumulated empirical knowledge, rules of thumb and geometric intuition that, while not scientifically rigorous, produce results. He knows, for instance, that the table should be oriented perpendicular to the stone's main axis. the line running from what will be the top of the gem to its bottom point. He knows that the pavilion facets, the angled faces that will be cut below the table, should slope at roughly 50 to 55 degrees from horizontal. These angles are not arbitrary. They have been refined through centuries of trial and error, through careful observation of which cuts produce the most brilliant stones. He positions the DARP stick against a simple wooden guide, a slotted piece of wood that helps maintain the correct angle. The diamond touches the scaife's surface lightly, not yet cutting, just resting. He tests his posture, his grip, the reach to the treadle. Everything feels right. He takes a breath and then presses the treadle. The scaife begins to spin, slowly at first, then faster as he works the treadle in a steady rhythm. The wheel accelerates, the whir-whir-whir growing louder and faster until it blends into a continuous hum. When the speed is right, he presses the diamond against the spinning surface. The sound changes immediately. The smooth hum of the spinning wheel is joined by a higher note, a scratching sound that rises above the mechanical whir. Diamond dust is biting into diamond, removing material atom by atom, creating flatness where there was roughness. He holds the DARP stick steady, maintaining pressure, keeping the angle constant. The geometric guide helps, but ultimately it is his hands that control the cut, his hands that determine whether the facet will be true or flawed. The work requires total attention. He cannot look away, cannot let his mind wander. The angle must be held precisely. Too steep and the table will be off axis, creating a stone that looks tilted even when properly set. Too shallow and the proportions will be wrong, the table too large relative to the stone's depth. He watches the contact point, sees the diamond dust doing its work, sees the dull surface gradually becoming flatter, smoother. Minutes pass. 5, 10, 15. The scaife spins on, the treadle rising and falling in its steady rhythm. The lamplight flickers slightly, creating dancing shadows on the walls. The lapidary's foot maintains its pace, automatic now, requiring no thought. His hands hold the DARP stick, making tiny adjustments, compensating for minute variations in the wheel's surface, in the stone's hardness. Diamond is not uniformly hard in all directions. Cutting across the grain requires more pressure than cutting with it. These variations must be felt and compensated for in real time. He pauses, lifts the stone from the wheel. The scaife continues spinning, its momentum carrying it forward even without the treadle's drive. He examines the emerging table facet. It is starting to show true flatness now, starting to reflect light as a mirror does. But there are still scratches, still irregularities. The work must continue. He returns the stone to the wheel. Press, hold, the singing scratch resumes. More material is removed. The facet grows larger, deeper, flatter. He is working his way through the shaped round stone, removing the top portion to create the table. The size of the table relative to the overall stone is important. Too large and the diamond will look spread thin, lacking depth and fire. Too small and light will not enter efficiently. The proportion must be balanced, typically making the table diameter roughly half to two-thirds the diameter of the stone at its widest point. He works by eye, by feel, by the accumulated knowledge in his hands. Every few minutes he stops, examines, measures with a small brass caliper, checks the progress. The facet is growing. The table is taking shape. The stone is transforming from a rough, rounded form into something beginning to resemble a gem. Time flows on. The lamp burns. The oil in its reservoir grows lower. He makes a note to refill it but does not stop working. The rhythm has him now, the meditative flow of sustained precision work. Outside, the city sleeps. Inside, light is being coaxed from stone. The table facet is nearly complete. The surface is flat now, truly flat, though still bearing the fine scratches left by the medium-grade diamond dust. Later, these scratches will be polished away with finer dust, but for now, the geometry is what matters. He checks the facet with a straight edge, a small steel ruler held against the stone's surface. The edge touches everywhere, no gaps, no high spots. Perfect. Now the angle must be changed. The pavilion facets must be cut, the sloping faces below the table that will reflect light back upward, creating the diamond's fire. These facets are more complex than the table. Where the table is a single flat face, the pavilion consists of multiple facets arranged symmetrically around the stone's bottom. The exact number varies depending on the stone's size and the lapidary's preferences. For this stone, he plans 8 main pavilion facets, creating an 8-sided pyramid below the table. Cutting multiple facets that meet in precise geometric relationships requires a higher level of skill than cutting a single table. Each facet must be the correct size, the correct angle, positioned correctly relative to its neighbors. If one facet is cut too deeply, it will create an asymmetry that cannot be corrected without recutting all the others. If the angles are inconsistent, the light behavior will be unpredictable, creating dead spots where the diamond appears dark instead of brilliant. He adjusts the dop stick in his hand, tilting it to present the stone at a new angle to the wheel. There are devices, jam pegs they are called, that help maintain consistent angles, simple wooden frames with adjustable arms that can lock the dop stick at predetermined positions. He uses one now, setting the angle to approximately 52 degrees from horizontal. This is the angle that experience has taught produces good results for stones of this size and proportion. The scaphe is still spinning, still charged with diamond dust and oil. He brings the stone into contact with the wheel at this new angle, starting the first pavilion facet. The sound is the same, that distinctive high scratch of diamond on diamond, but now he must also rotate the stone periodically, cutting each of the 8 facets in turn. The process is, cut one facet for a few minutes, lift the stone, rotate it 1/8 turn, cut the next facet, rotate, cut, rotate, cut. Each facet must receive equal time, equal pressure, equal attention. The work is painstaking. After completing one circuit of all 8 facets, he examines the progress. The facets are beginning to appear, 8 flat planes sloping down from the table to the stone's bottom. But they are not yet equal. Facet 3 is slightly smaller than the others. Facet 6 is slightly larger. He must compensate, spending extra time on 6, less time on 3, until balance is achieved. He returns to work. Rotate, cut, rotate, cut. The scaphe spins on, tireless, mechanical, precise. His foot works the treadle in its steady rhythm. The whir-whir-whir fills the room, a sound so constant it becomes like silence, noticed only when it stops. The lamplight casts his shadow large on the wall behind him, a giant version of himself bent over the spinning wheel, engaged in the eternal work of transformation. The pavilion facets deepen. The geometry becomes clearer. 8 planes meeting in 8 edges, all converging toward a point at the bottom of the stone. The edges where facets meet must be sharp and straight, crisp lines that define the stone's architecture. Any rounding or irregularity in these edges will mar the finished gem, creating fuzzy boundaries where there should be geometric precision. He works for hours. The night deepens. The city is utterly silent now, everyone asleep except the occasional night watchman making his rounds. The lapidary continues, unhurried, methodical. The work takes as long as it takes. There is a rhythm to it that transcends time, that exists outside the normal flow of hours and minutes. In this space, there is only the work, the stone, the slowly emerging beauty. The facets are cut now, all 8 of them, equal and symmetrical. But the work is not complete. The surfaces are still rough, still bearing the scratches of the medium diamond dust. They must be polished, refined to mirror smoothness. This is where the stone will truly come alive, where the theoretical geometry of correct angles becomes the practical reality of brilliant light. He stops the scaphe and lifts his foot from the treadle. The wheel gradually slows, the whir-whir-whir descending in pitch as the rotational speed decreases, until finally it comes to rest. The sudden silence is profound. His ears ring slightly from hours of the wheel's noise. He stands, stretches, works the stiffness from his back and shoulders. The scaphe must be cleaned and recharged with fresh diamond dust, this time the finest grade available. He wipes the wheel's surface with a cloth, removing the spent dust and oil, revealing the clean iron underneath. Then he takes a different pouch from the wooden box, this one containing dust so fine it is nearly invisible, a powder that feels like smoke between the fingers. This is the polishing dust, the final grade that will create mirror surfaces on the facets. He charges the wheel with this finest dust, mixing it with oil, spreading it carefully across the iron surface. The consistency is slightly different from the medium dust, thinner, more liquid, less dust, more oil. The polishing process generates more heat than the cutting process, and the extra oil helps dissipate this heat, preventing damage to the stone. When the wheel is ready, he sits again and positions the darp stick. The table facet will be polished first, transformed from rough flatness to perfect mirror. He starts the treadle, brings the wheel up to speed, and touches the diamond to its surface. The sound changes. Where the cutting produced a scratching note, the polishing creates something different, higher, purer. As the microscopic scratches are removed and the surface becomes truly smooth, the pitch rises, becoming almost a singing note, a high sustained tone that speaks of perfection approaching. The lapidary listens to this sound as carefully as he watches the stone. When the note reaches its highest, clearest pitch, the polishing is complete. He works the table facet, holding pressure, maintaining the angle. The fine dust does its work slowly, more slowly than the cutting dust. Patience is required. Minutes pass. The singing note gradually rises in pitch. And then, suddenly, there is a change in the quality of light reflected from the facet. What was dull becomes bright. What scattered light begins to reflect it. The table facet is starting to polish. He continues, even though the visual change has occurred. The microscopic structure of the surface is still being refined. Imperfections too small to see are being removed. The singing note climbs higher. His foot maintains the rhythm on the treadle. The wheel spins on. Finally, he judges it complete. He lifts the stone and examines the table facet. It is mirror smooth now, reflecting the lamplight with perfect clarity. He can see his own eye reflected in the tiny surface, distorted by the facet's size but perfectly clear. This is what polish looks like. This is the goal. Now the pavilion facets must receive the same treatment. One by one, 8 facets to polish, each one requiring the same patience, the same precision. He begins with the first facet, angling the darp stick, bringing the stone to the wheel. The singing scratch, the rising pitch, the transformation from dull to bright. He polishes until the sound tells him to stop, until the facet mirrors the lamp as perfectly as the table does. Rotate the stone, polish the next facet, rotate, polish. The work continues, each facet receiving its turn, each one transformed. The stone is beginning to sparkle now, truly sparkle. With the table polished and several pavilion facets complete, light can enter the diamond, bounce off the polished surfaces, and return to the eye. Fire begins to appear, flashes of color created by the diamond's dispersion of white light into its component wavelengths. A flash of red here, a spark of blue there. The stone is waking up. He continues through all 8 pavilion facets. The work is hypnotic, repetitive, but never boring because each facet is unique, each one requiring slightly different pressure, slightly different time, slight adjustments to account for variations in the stone's grain and hardness. His hands know what to do, have learned through years of practice exactly how much pressure, exactly how long, exactly when to stop. The final facet is polished. He lifts the stone from the wheel and stops the treadle. The scaphe slows and halts. In the sudden silence, he examines the diamond. It lies at the end of the darp stick, catching the lamplight and transforming it into something magical. Fire dances in its heart. The facets gleam like mirrors. The geometry is precise, the proportions balanced. the execution careful. It is beautiful. But beauty is not enough. The work must be examined critically, every surface inspected for flaws, every edge checked for trueness. He reaches for the magnifying lens, the brass instrument mounted on its articulated arm. He positions the lens between his eye and the diamond, adjusting the distance until the stone comes into sharp focus, enlarged several times its actual size. Under magnification, every imperfection is visible. Scratches that are invisible to the naked eye appear as deep grooves. Tiny chips or irregularities in the facet edges become obvious. He examines the table facet first, moving the lens slowly across its surface. The polish is good, very good. No scratch is visible even at this magnification. The surface is smooth and continuous, a perfect mirror. He shifts to the pavilion facets, examining each one in turn. The polish is consistent across all of them. The edges where facets meet are sharp and clean geometric lines that define the stone's architecture perfectly. No chips, no rounding, no irregularities. He checks the angles, using his eye and his accumulated knowledge to confirm that each facet is positioned correctly. Yes, all correct. The geometry is sound. But there is one more thing to check. Internal flaws. Despite all the careful examination during the planning phase, despite the successful cleaving that removed the major inclusion, it is possible that small internal features remain, tiny crystals or fractures deep within the stone that were not visible in the rough, but might be apparent now that the facets are cut and polished. He holds the diamond up to the lamp, looking through it, using the magnifying lens to peer into its interior. The light passes through the table, bounces off the pavilion facets, creates that characteristic diamond brilliance. But beyond the play of light, he is searching for anything that should not be there. He rotates the stone, examining from different angles, looking for telltale shadows or irregularities that would indicate an internal flaw. Nothing. The stone is clean. Perhaps not perfectly flawless by the strictest standards, but clean enough that any inclusions present are too small to see even under magnification. This is excellent. A clean stone of this size will command a premium price. The merchant who commissioned this work will be pleased. The lapidary sets down the lens and allows himself a moment of satisfaction. The work is complete. The rough, cloudy pebble that arrived on his bench days ago has been transformed into a brilliant gem, a thing of geometric beauty and captured light. The angles are correct, the facets are polished, the proportions are balanced. It is good work. Not perfect, perhaps. No human work is perfect, but it is very, very good. Now the stone must be removed from the dart stick. This is a delicate operation. The lead solder holding the diamond can be melted by heating the dart stick, but care must be taken not to overheat the diamond itself. Diamonds are remarkably resistant to heat under normal circumstances, but thermal shock can cause fracturing. The heating must be gradual, controlled, gentle. He holds the end of the dart stick over the candle flame, rotating it slowly to ensure even heating. He watches the lead carefully. After a minute or so, the metal begins to soften, its surface taking on a liquid sheen. When it is fully molten, he grasps the diamond with his tweezers and gently lifts it free. The stone comes away cleanly, a small amount of lead still adhering to its base, but easily removed. He sets the dart stick aside and examines the diamond, still held in the tweezers. There is residual lead on the rough, unpolished bottom portion where it was embedded. This must be cleaned away. He uses a small blade to scrape off the bulk of the metal, then polishes the area with a cloth to remove the last traces. The stone is now completely free, independent, a finished gem. He carries it to the workbench and places it on a square of black velvet, the traditional backdrop for displaying diamonds. The contrast is stark and dramatic. The white, brilliant stone on the deep black fabric. The lamplight falls on the diamond and is transformed into fire. Light enters through the polished table, bounces off the pavilion facets according to the geometric laws governing reflection and refraction, and emerges in a spray of brilliance and color. The fire is mesmerizing. Each slight movement of the lamp or change in viewing angle creates different patterns of light, different arrangements of color. A flash of red here, a spark of blue there, a ray of yellow splitting into the spectrum. This is what all the work was for. This moment. This transformation of dull stone into brilliant gem. The lapidary sits at his bench and simply looks at the diamond for a long moment. The workshop is quiet. The scaife sits still and silent. The tools are scattered across the bench, each one marked by use, each one part of the process that created this small miracle. Outside, the city sleeps on, unaware that here, in this small room, light has been captured and released. He picks up the diamond with his tweezers and holds it to the lamplight again, turning it slowly, watching the play of light through the facets. The table is perfect, a window into the stone's heart. The pavilion facets are precisely angled, creating the internal reflections that give diamond its fire. The edges are sharp and clean, the proportions balanced. It is finished. Tomorrow, or perhaps the day after, he will deliver this stone to the merchant who commissioned the work. The merchant will examine it critically, will compare it to the rough stone he purchased, will calculate the loss of weight during cutting and decide whether the result justifies the cost. Almost certainly, he will be pleased. A well-cut diamond is always more valuable than the rough from which it came, the artistry and skill of the lapidary adding value far beyond the simple weight of the stone. From the merchant, the diamond will pass to a goldsmith who will create a setting for it, a mounting of precious metal designed to hold the stone securely while displaying it to best advantage. And from the goldsmith, it will eventually find its way to its final owner, perhaps a noblewoman who will wear it as a sign of wealth and status, perhaps a church that will use it to adorn a reliquary or ceremonial object, perhaps a king who will add it to his treasury as a store of portable wealth. But all of that is tomorrow's story. Tonight, the stone sits on black velvet, catching lamplight and transforming it into fire. The workshop is peaceful. The long hours of work have left the lapidary tired but satisfied, the particular tiredness that comes from sustained concentration, from work done well. He tidies his workspace, cleaning the scaife, putting away tools, sweeping up the accumulated diamond dust, and adding it to his collection. The lamp is burning low now, its oil nearly exhausted. The flame flickers and dims. He extinguishes it rather than letting it burn dry, pinching the wick between moistened fingers. The room falls into darkness, lit only by the faint moonlight coming through the window. In the dimness, the diamond on its velvet square still catches what little light there is, still sparkles, still demonstrates that it is more than mere stone. The lapidary covers the diamond with a small wooden box, protecting it from dust and curious eyes. Tomorrow it will be delivered. Tonight it rests as he must rest. The work is complete. The transformation is accomplished. Light has been released from stone through patience, skill, and the application of geometric principles refined over centuries. It is enough. He moves to the window one last time, looking out at the sleeping city. The moon is lower now, approaching the horizon. Dawn is still hours away. The streets are empty and quiet. A dog barks somewhere in the distance, the sound carrying clearly in the still air. Otherwise silence, the deep silence of night in a city at rest. He turns from the window and prepares for sleep. The workshop is tidy, the tools put away, the diamonds secured. Everything is in its place. Tomorrow will bring new work, perhaps a new rough stone to examine and plan, perhaps consultations with merchants, perhaps the delivery of the finished gem and the satisfaction of payment received. But all of that is tomorrow. Tonight there is only rest. The bed is simple, a narrow cot in the corner of the workshop. He does not live here, does not sleep here every night, but sometimes, when work extends past reasonable hours, when the rhythm of labor makes it foolish to walk home through dark streets, he stays. Tonight is such a night. He lies down, the workshop familiar and comfortable around him, the darkness complete. His hands rest on his chest. He can feel the slight tremor in them, the aftermath of hours of precise, controlled work. The tremor will fade. It always does. By morning, his hands will be steady again, ready for whatever work the new day brings. For now, they rest as he rests. The stone sleeps in its barks, the city sleeps in darkness. And you too can sleep now. The work is finished. The rough has been transformed. The light has been revealed. The facets are cut and polished. The geometry is perfect. Everything is safe. Everything is in its place. The workshop is quiet. The diamond sparkles silently on its velvet, even in darkness holding the potential for fire. Sleep now. Let the scratch of the wheel fade from your mind. Let the singing of the polish become a memory. Rest easy. The work is done. The light is captured. Close your eyes. The medieval gem cutter's workshop fades into gentle darkness. Sleep.